Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Rich T Racing. In today's video we're going to be talking about Sebastian Vettel and is he an underrated driver? Now you might be wondering why I've chosen to use the word underrated, because surely as a four-time world champion, 52 Grand Prix victories, 56 pole positions and about 1,000 incidents over the past year, surely he should be considered overrated. He shouldn't be thought of as one of the greats. Well, for me, considering the amount of sort of articles you see nowadays, particularly in the Italian media, I think there was somebody who trained Michael Schumacher back in the day, said that he's nowhere near Schumacher's level. I think the amount of stick he's getting right now makes him already overrated. So therefore, he might be underrated. Does he warrant this amount of stick, the amount of abuse, or I say abuse, sort of the amount of criticism he gets from the media? And that's what I'm going to be looking at today. Now, it is completely fair to say that Sebastian Vettel has had an untold amount of incidents throughout the past year. The past two seasons really have been shocking for Sebastian Vettel. I mean, I've made a list of some of the incidents he's been involved in the past 3 years, and we've got 2016, we've got Australia, Canada, Belgium, Malaysia, Mexico. 2017, we've got Baku and Singapore. But then we get to 2018, we've got Baku, Germany, Italy, Japan, USA, and then 2019, Bahrain, Monaco, Canada, Britain. That's about 14 major incidents that have cost him major points in the past 3 years. I know, like Australia 2016, Canada 2016. Okay, I'm stretching back a little bit there, but Canada 2016, by the way, is just where he stopped for some seagulls. That's a bit of a joke, but he shouldn't have stopped for seagulls because seagulls are a menace and should be killed. Anyway, that's an unholy amount of incidents for somebody who's in his 13th season of Formula One. He's at 12 and a half. If you can, like, obviously he was only in 2007 for the second half of it. But at 12 and a half seasons, so 12 years, 4 world championships, 52 Grand Prix victories, 56 pole positions, you would think at this stage of his career, he would have the maturity, the level-headedness to not be making these mistakes. The type of mistakes you would expect a rookie to be making, the type of mistakes you'd be expecting him to make at the early part of his career, which, by the way, he did. He had quite a number of incidents in 2008 in particular, up until that Monza win. There was also that very famous incident at Japan in 2007 where he drove into the back of Mark Webber after, I can't quite remember. I think it was Vettel drove into the back of Mark Webber. He obviously in the Toro Rosso, Webber in the Red Bull, costing them both a podium. So yeah, you can see the amount of incidents he's had over the course of his career, and they've just got worse as he's got older, which is surprising. And now, this isn't a comparison between Vettel and Hamilton, but if you look at Lewis Hamilton over roughly the same period, I can think of 4 major incidents for Hamilton in races and in qualifying. 3 in just races. You got, I think it was China 2016 where he hit Felipe Nasr and damaged his wing when he was trying to come back through the field, scuppered his race. And then Spain 2016 when he was involved in that collision with Rosberg. I think that was a 50-50 between those two drivers. Then you've got Brazil 2017 qualifying and Germany 2019 when he was just rubbish. So you can see over the same 3-year period, Vettel's had about 14 incidents, whereas Hamilton, who's been in the sport just half a season longer, has had 10 less. And certainly only 1 since 2018. So you just see how much his career has just curtailed. He used to be this imperious driver. Now he's just the one you think, oh God, he's going to crash again. He's rubbish. Even when he hit Verstappen at Britain, I was like, oh my God, he is so bad. But he's not. He can't be this bad because think back to 2010 through 2013. He was imperious. He was such a dominant force in Formula One. He sat Fernando Alonso down on his arse because he just couldn't live with how dominant Vettel could be in that Red Bull. Okay, yes, you can argue it was just the car. It was just Adrian Newey, and he got lucky, particularly in 2012. But even in that 2012 season, the car wasn't the best, and he was there when Alonso made mistakes. When Alonso was involved in that incident in Belgium, he finished second. He got the car he was outside the top 10. He got the car up to second when it was a lot more difficult to get the front running car into second. When he crashed, when he was involved in an incident in Japan, Vettel was there to win the race. So you can see how even in 2012, the season that a lot of people argue, including myself, I don't think he really deserved it. Even so, he put the car there and he got the results. So he's gone from this imperious, brilliant driver who could win races by 30 seconds to a driver who just makes untold amounts of mistakes and is just being led to be described as rubbish. So I can understand why you'd think him underrated from that point of view, but at the same time, I think he's not underrated because of what he used to be. There are other things as well that say he is underrated, and other things that as well say he isn't underrated. He deserves the plaudits he gets. But in terms of he is underrated, he's not underrated. Think of his teammates. You've got Sebastian Bourdais in 2007 and 2008, who was, he got kicked out of Toro Rosso halfway through the season. Imagine that happening to a driver. Actually, no, I make that joke as if it's just happened. No, because they get kicked out of Red Bull and then they get thrown to Toro Rosso. So if you get kicked out of Toro Rosso, you've done something very, very wrong. So yeah, that was his teammate in 2007, 2009. You got Mark Webber. Mark Webber was a good driver, don't get me wrong, but he wasn't he wasn't capable of challenging Vettel in the Red Bull, particularly in those 2011 and 2013 seasons. You then think of Kimi Räikkönen, a very, very good driver, but past his prime. Not the driver he was at the start of the early 2000s. He was a driver that was there to play number two. Mark Webber was there to play number two. The only driver who was there to play number two and destroyed him, showed Vettel up, was Daniel Ricciardo in 2014. You might say, well, what about Charles Leclerc? Well, the interesting thing about Charles Leclerc is whilst he looks the more capable driver, he too has made a number of serious mistakes this year, and actually Vettel is beating Leclerc in every aspect apart from qualifying, where it's a 6-all tie. Now, you look at that Ricciardo year. Ricciardo was just come out of Toro Rosso. He'd done very little between 2011 and 2013, and then he comes into the sport, gets a podium in his very first race that gets taken away from him, and then absolutely dominates Vettel throughout the rest of the year. I don't have the statistics to hand, but I know he destroyed him in qualifying and destroyed him in the Drivers' Championship, won 3 races when I think Vettel only managed to get 4 podiums. So you can just see how when he went up against a driver who was of a similar level, or a driver who is not a pushover, he got destroyed. He got taken apart. So yes, you can see from that point as well why he is definitely not underrated. But then at the same time, you have to have a certain amount of talent to be able to get the car to perform, and that is why I believe he completely destroyed Mark Webber over the course of those 4 years. You have to have the driver and the car working together, and that comes back to what I was saying earlier. When Sebastian Vettel has the car at his feet, he is unstoppable. Look at Singapore in 2015, probably one of his greatest drives in the Ferrari that was by no means the best car on the grid. It was easily second best. And yes, Mercedes had a really dodgy weekend that year, but even so, he won the race by 15 seconds, which is a very large margin, and he took pole by something I don't know, but I'm pretty sure he took pole by like a second. So, and just see what kind of driver he can be when everything works for him. But then at the same time, you can say, well, if everything doesn't work for him, then he descends into sort of just mediocre. But to be fair, you can say the same about Lewis Hamilton. When Lewis Hamilton when his car's not working, he has dodgy weekends. And that comes back to the old argument that the driver is only as good as the car. But when the car is good, when the car works, Vettel for me is imperious, unbeatable. The only thing you can say as well about some of his coming through the field drives, now some of them have been fantastic. This is another point as to why he can be considered as underrated and not. The reason he's had some of these great coming through the field drives is simply because the car has been so much better. I reference France 2018. He crashed at the very start of the race into Valtteri Bottas. Another mistake. I forgot to mention that one. And then he came through to finish fifth. But that wasn't a challenge. He just had to drive. And whilst his drives in Abu Dhabi and Brazil 2012 were phenomenal, I'm not taking anything away from him. You can't, like, when you watch the onwards, you can just see how easy it is for him to do it, just because the car was so much better than the cars around him, and he had DRS. So these coming through the field drives that he gets given so much credit for, which he does deserve in parts, also can say, well, he's just benefited from having a great car and DRS. So, in conclusion, for me it's a really difficult one, because I should also point out, I'm not the biggest Sebastian Vettel fan. I can completely understand why he is considered overrated. I really, really can. And I'm half leaning towards saying I think he is. And is Sebastian Vettel underrated? No. But just the way he dominated the early part of this decade, some of the wins he had, he could win races by 30 seconds and do an extra pit stop and still win. So because I know that driver still has to be in there, and I really hope he comes back where Sebastian Vettel should be for 2020, because the 2020 season is shaping up to be fantastic. You've got Red Bull back on the march, you've got Mercedes, they'll be trying to win 7 in a row, and you've got Ferrari still trying to win a world championship for the first time in 12 years. If Sebastian Vettel can re-find his form from the 2010-2013 era, and also that 2015 season, 2017, I haven't mentioned 2017, I believe Vettel should have won in 2017. It was the Ferrari's unreliability and bad strategy calls that cost him that world championship. I believe if he can rediscover that form, he could be a 5-time world champion. And I think he should be. He should be the Michael Schumacher of our generation, not Lewis Hamilton. It should be Vettel, looking at how dominant and imperious he was at the start of this decade. But he's lost it. And I really hope he comes back. But do I think Sebastian Vettel is underrated? Yes, I do. Based on what we've seen in the past. I didn't even mention Monza 2008. He won in a Toro Rosso in the wet. When the Toro Rosso was better than Red Bull, but still, a Toro Rosso in the wet. Amazing. So for what we've seen in the early parts of his career, up until he stopped winning championships, I think he is underrated. And I still think he is a brilliant driver. I just hope he can cut out these ridiculous incidents and deliver what we know he is capable of delivering. And then I think the argument will go away and we'll say, yes, he has always been that brilliant driver. But those are just my thoughts. If you have your own opinions, or if you have different opinions, or I've missed stuff about Sebastian Vettel that make him overrated or make him more underrated, then please let me know in the comments. Please let us know in the comments. We love having your opinion. We love the debate. I hope you've enjoyed this video. And if you did, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. And the final thing I will say for now is ta-ta and farewell.